You want to go ahead and turn your Bible to Matthew chapter 25. That's where we're going to be this morning. I want to start out reading something to you. I read a blog post this week. There's a writer named Jen Hatmaker. And this went along very well with what we're talking about, what we've been looking at and focusing on during this series. This is what she says. Matthew 25. What a disaster. Jesus so deeply identifies himself with the prisoner and the hungry and the stranger and the naked and the poor. He says, when you consider them and their plight, imagine that it is actually me you are serving. Let me tell you something, Jesus. Low blow. I do not want to see your face in the faces of those complicated, hurting, needy people. When I see a prisoner, I want to see criminal. When I see the homeless, I want to see addict. I want to see threat or, at best, financial drain. What I do not want to see is your sweet face. Why couldn't you identify with more stable people? We like you in the faces of our children, our best friends, for example. We like you in our pretty churches and our gated communities. You do realize what this sort of holy identification will cost and require, right? Why? Why did you have to say all of that in Matthew 25? I very much prefer Christian rules to this nonsense. And it is nonsense, Jesus. Your ways do not make any sort of conventional sense. I know we are to live this death and resurrection with you, but I only like the resurrection part. I'm serious. I want to skip the death part because it is too hard and requires way too much dying. Rules. You know, we prefer the rules. You ever feel the same way? I mean, you think about the whole idea of the Old Testament, the idea of rules, and I think I would have been really good at that. Because Kristen will say, hey, can you run the store? And she gives me a list. And I'm a good follower, you know? And I'll get to the store and there's two things that look the same. And I'm like, I'm not sure. So guess what I'll do? I'll call her. Hey, babe, which of the two? And I'll describe it. She'll say, well, how about this? Just send me a picture. So I'll take a picture from my phone. She'll tell me which one and I'll do it. You know, if you say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to be in the hospital and I'd really appreciate a visit. I appreciate you telling me, coming and telling me, you know, this is going to be good and pray with me. And here's the list. And you go this street and this street and this is the hospital that you'll find me. I can follow the rules pretty good. And I think back on my life and when I was kind of following the path of the Pharisee and kind of had it all together and I was self-righteous and I was doing everything exactly the way that it ought to be done, I was pretty good at producing self-righteousness. I was pretty good at following the rules. But see, Jesus said, I'm going to do away with this old system and I'm going to come and I'm going to bring this new system, and this new system involves a death, burial, and resurrection. It involves love, joy, peace, all these things where you have to be compassionate. You have to have mercy. And see, I'm a lot better at following the rules than I am at actually getting out and applying what God has called me to do in life. And what we're looking at in this series, and something I've been trying to just preach as a theme for the last 6 or 8 months as I've delivered lessons here, is this whole idea of death. Of us saying, okay, we got to understand that God is calling us to a different life. God is not calling us to be comfortable. God is not calling us just to go through this life and cruise and do what we want to do. He's calling us to die to some of our preferences. He's calling us to die to some of the lifestyle advantages that we participate in every day. He's calling us to live a different life, which means dying to this world and dying to some of the things that people have accepted as the way to walk with Jesus. Because that's what it's about. That's what He's called us to. And that's what we're going to look at in a little bit more detail today. As we look at this lesson, this series we continue, there is an I in Thanksgiving. And what we're going to ask people to do is look at what I can do as an individual this holiday season. So let's begin again in Matthew chapter 25, verse 34. Then the king will say to those on the right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me." We're going to concentrate today on that phrase from verse 36 that says, "I was naked, and you gave me clothing." We can look at God's Word, and we can see that from the beginning until this very day that He has addressed this whole idea in the very same way. He's always told His people to do things in a way that is consistent toward those who are less fortunate. You look back in Isaiah chapter 58, "Share your food with the hungry and give shelter to the homeless. Give clothes to those who need them, and do not hide from relatives who need your help." In other words, He's always said this: meet the needs of those who are around you. And we have an opportunity. And that's what we're going to look at this week. I want to encourage you to think about your clothes in your home and go into your closet, into your storage deal, and wherever else you keep your 15 bags of clothing and the big deals that you're holding on to until they come back into style 20 years from now. All those different things. And I want to encourage you to go through them and eliminate and bring them here. And then I think it's the 6th and 7th, and it's Monday, Tuesday, I believe, of December. We partnered with Maine Elementary. They're going to open their gym. We're going to have 6 or 8 of our people there from 3 to 7 on that Monday and Tuesday. We're going to send these little cards home with the students there. We're going to advertise some in the community. And these people who need this stuff are going to come, and we're going to be able to do what God has called us to do by giving some of the abundance that we have to those who are in need. I was naked and you gave me clothing. This idea of naked, we think about that and we know automatically what comes to mind, right? In the scripture, this means that the poorly clothed. That's really what it's saying. Among the Jews, they were called naked, who were clad in poor raiment, or who had only their inner garment without any outer garment. That's Barnes' commentary on the Bible. So I want you to think about this for just a moment. There are definitely those who are without clothing totally, and we definitely need to help them. But you think about just looking around where we are. And you think about those who are poorly clothed. What are we doing for them? There are people who have poor raiments all around us. I was talking about the weather just a moment ago as I started out and welcomed everyone here. And like I said, I'm really excited about this weather. But you know what I did last night before I went to bed? I wanted to make sure our heat was on. Because through the night, I was going to be in that bed that has a sheet and a blanket and a comforter on it. And I wanted to make sure that if that wasn't enough, we had that heat going through the house that was going to keep the 4 of us warm in that home. And at night, when it's 29 degrees here in Rome, Georgia, I'll be warm. But there's some people here in this town who won't. Who don't have an outer garment, who are doing the best that they can because of what they have on their body. It may be the only set of clothes that they have. And I'm asking us, who are living in the land of plenty, who are enjoying abundance, what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about it tonight? What are we going to do about it this week? What are we going to do about it this holiday season? As we see people, as God says, okay, I'm going to set this person in front of you. You're on your way home. They're standing on the corner. And I'm going to... So I don't have to really pay attention to it. So I don't have to think about what I can actually do. Because it kind of inconveniences me to go with the traffic, taking 45 minutes in this small town to drive 3 or 4 miles and get home. And it would really inconvenience me to grab a bunch of stuff and bring it back into town and give it to that person and then have to drive back home. So I just say a prayer that God will send somebody their way. How many do we have? Well, see, all we have to do is just look around. And that's a prayer I'm praying on a regular basis these days. And it's amazing what God will do if we're just open our eyes. I'm saying, God, open my eyes. Help me see people. Because, see, I'm always in a hurry. I'm running to the grocery store, or I'm running to the hardware store, and I've got some kind of project going on. And sometimes I bump into people. But now I'm praying a regular prayer that says, God, help me to understand why you bring me into contact with people. When I see people who are in need, help me open my eyes to that. Because that may be the prayer that God is answering, saying, hey, here it is, big boy. What are you going to do with it? And I go into the schools where my children attend, and I get to see people, and I understand that there's some of those people who are in that school, some of the kids, some of those parents who don't have things and they need things. And I look around our city, and I see people who are walking down the street. I look at my family. Folks, if we will open our eyes, we will see where we can meet needs. People are there. They have a lot of needs. I want us to watch this video, and I want us to think about the message here.
Over here you have a desk, chest of drawers, you have a nightstand, a light, an alarm. Oh, and Sean says all the pro athletes use futons if they can't find a bed big enough, so I got you one of those. Of course, the frame was Haynes. It's not about to let that in my house, but I got you something nicer.
It's mine?
Yes, sir. What?
Never had one before.
What, a room to yourself?
A bed.
Well, you have one now.
Of course, that scene's from the movie The Blind Side. And I remember seeing that the first time, and it hit me here. And I've never watched that without it affecting me in some kind of way. But just the fact of the matter is, I've always been a person my entire life who had a place to stay. I've always been a person who, in the summer, was cooled when I was inside. I've always been a person who, during the winter, was warm when I was inside. I've always had a bed that was my own in my own room. I've always had clothes. Now, as I got a little bit older, me and my brother would share those sometimes and get in some fights about who's wearing the cool shirt. But we always had a closet full of things that we could use, and there was an abundance of those. And my mom sometimes would work a second job on us so that we could have those good things, the name brand stuff. My entire life, I've known a blessed life. But there are people all around us who are in need. In every age bracket, in every racial group, there are people that God is saying, I want you to go to that person. And this is what I'm asking. And this is where I want to get personal with all of us. Why don't we do something? What? Why don't we do something? You see these numbers all the time, and you know, I've read about adoption, and if every household in America would adopt a child, and I think it was like maybe even just half of them, that it would eliminate the orphan situation in the world. You know, we complain about things, and it's like, you know, this whole thing happened this past week, and some of our friends overseas lost relatives and family members in a horrible crime against humanity. And we did something. We put the little flag on Facebook. I'm with them. I got several friends in this room who went to a recruiting station and sat down in a chair and said, I'll give my life, that's what it takes, to keep my people free. And I have friends who can't sleep at night because of the things that they endured when we took them over and dropped them off into a terrible situation when they're 18, 20 years old. And that sacrifice that those men and women made allow us to enjoy so many things today.
Amen.
And I take that and I parallel it with this Christian life we're talking about. We get so frustrated with things. We get so frustrated with our economy. We get so frustrated with, oh, the welfare system is messed up and this and that. You know what? It was never the government's job to take care of people. It's always been our job. It's always been our responsibility. God said if you got people in your family who are in need, take care of them. If we don't like somebody who's homeless or standing out on the street who doesn't have a job, give them one. Let them rake your yard. Pay them $10. Pay them $100. Whatever it is. Help them in some way. See, the thing about it is we can complain all we want, living in our abundance day after day, or we can get out and be Jesus and make a difference.
Yeah.
See, God's going to provide. He tells us that over and over and over. But he's saying this abundance that I'm giving you is to be shared. Let's think about this question here. Why don't we do something? Let's look at Matthew chapter 6. Verse 25 says, "That is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear. Isn't life more than food, and your body more than clothing?" If God is saying, I'm going to give you what you need, and this abundance is to be shared, then why do we refuse to help those we are aware of who have a need? What's the real answer there? Well, I want to give us two things. First of all, I want to say this. I think we're too concerned about what others think about the way that we dress. Therefore, we need a lot of clothes because I can't wear the same thing over and over. Because if I do that, you might talk about it. You might notice that, and it might become an issue. And we all know it's still third grade. And we don't want to be cookie cutter, right? I went home for my granddad's funeral, and my uncle was there. I haven't seen him in a while. Phenomenal individual. I love him. He's made a tremendous difference in my life. He always messes with me a little bit. He watches this. He probably watches online. He is. Hello, Uncle Jimmy. He's always been one of my favorite uncles, one of my favorite people. But he also messes with me, and that's the reason, one of the reasons I love him, because he picks at me. So he said, "Hey, I'm going to talk to you for a minute." He talked to me a little bit. He said, "Hey, I decided what I'm going to get you for Christmas." I said, "What's that?" He said, "I'm going to get you a different colored vest." I said, "What?" He said, "You wear that black vest almost every Sunday." I was like, "Hey, if it works, if you look good in it, work that for it." You know what I mean? But the deal is, it's just one of those things where, like I said, he was just messing with me a little bit. But sometimes in situations like that, we really start to think, I've got buddies, and I love having these conversations. And I say, you know what? Whatever I wear on Monday, I wear a different shirt, but I wear the same khakis all week. And I'm like, you're my boy. Because, hey, by the end of the week, they're standing up on their own. All you got to do is just walk there and put your feet down, But that's one of the things for us. And that's one of the reasons we don't meet these needs is because we're too concerned about what others think about what we wear. But the second part of this is this. See, we have to have this ongoing wardrobe update, and we have to spend so much money on clothes, keeping other people happy, that we don't have any money to spare to buy clothes for someone else. Folks, we really need to think about this, because it's an issue. There's a wonderful message here in this passage in Matthew 6, and I encourage you to read the entire passage, but I would argue that it's the dominating theme of the latter part of Matthew 6. You know what that is? Don't worry. Don't worry. God's going to take care of you. Don't worry. God's going to provide. Don't worry. In this sense, don't worry about what other people think about your wardrobe. You do what's the right thing with what I've given you. That's what he's saying to us. How do you treat those who are in need? I want you to honestly answer that. How do you treat people who are in need? How do you look at the homeless? How do you look at the people who have been in jail or who are in jail? How about those people that took those bags of food? If you were there to hand them out, you may have a smile on your face, but in your heart, what are you really thinking about that? See, if it's good, we'll talk about that in just a second. But I want us to talk about if it's not good. If what you're thinking is not good, look, we just need to get that right. Look at 1 John chapter 4. It says, if someone says, I love God, but hates a fellow believer, that person is a liar. For if we don't love God, or for if we don't love people we can see, how can we love God that we cannot see? Now, some of you may say, well, that says our brother. Yeah, it does say that, but the principle applies to those who aren't. Because, you know the old question, who's our neighbor? And the answer to that's always been anyone we come into contact with. So anyone we come into contact with, in a sense, would be our brother. Why? Because all men are made in the image of God. So the question is this: how can we stand and say, I love God, I love Him, I'm going to praise Him, when we look at men and our attitudes cause us to have hate in our heart toward them because of choices they've made, because of where they are in life? How is that consistent? See, the thing that I'm coming to realize is this is a total change. It's a total transformation. I have to let all of the world die. I have to leave it behind. I have to pick up a new life. I have to ask Jesus to reform me, to put Himself in me, inject yourself in me. Allow me to be made new. And some of us have these attitudes that we've dealt with for a year or 5 years or 50 years. And I'm asking you, when that attitude rears its ugly head in your life, what do? Do you stop and say, God, I know this is not right, and I'm asking you to help me right here? But that's if our attitude is not good toward those people. But what if our attitude is good toward those people? Look, let me ask you this. Is just having a good attitude enough? Oh, there's a guy that I know who served 20 years in jail. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. There's some people right there who don't have a meal. Hey, guys. How's it going? Hey, friend. Is it enough just to have a good attitude toward them? Let's look at what the Scripture says in James chapter 2. Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye, have a good day, stay warm, eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? But here's where I want us to drive it home in our own lives and really see what God is saying to us in verse 17. Because there's something that we're going to say here, and we're going to look at, and we're going to talk about to follow this up, but 17 hits us hard. So you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Now let's emphasize that, because my attitude's good toward those people. I like them. I want to say hello to them. I don't have hate in my heart toward them. But it says right here, faith by itself, what? Isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Now the term useless there, defined by those who define such words, has no existence. Faith, if that's the way you're living it, does not exist. What God is telling to us in His Word is, it is impossible to say you have faith in Him, but not back it up by the way that you live, by the way that you treat others, by the way that you minister to them. It is impossible. It cannot happen. I can put the sticker on my car. I can put the name on my back. I can associate. I can have a church. I can have a membership card. I can do everything that I can to claim it. But if I'm not out living the life He's called me to live, if I'm not doing what God is saying for me to do day in and day out as I live in this community, then He's saying, Joey Haynes, keep calling yourself what you want to, but you are not of me. It's impossible. If we claim faith, works will be the result of that faith. And as I said before, I'm not a guy that believes that we work to earn our salvation. I don't believe that. I'm not one of those guys that believe that, but I do believe this. With all my heart, I believe that we work because we are saved. I want us to talk about this attitude or this lack of action and how it affects us eternally. Because that's what it's all about. How I'm living here and my obedience and what is going to happen to me when I draw my last breath here on earth. See, there are a lot of things that have stressed, we've stressed in the religious circles, and things that we put up there as matters of importance. And this goes back to what I said we were going to get to just a moment ago. But you think about what has been stressed to you as you've grown up. You think about the things that you've heard, the things that we really put in the forefront. We talk about church attendance a lot, how important it is to be at church, and it is. I mean, it's a good thing. I'm not trying to make light of that in any way whatsoever. But I've heard a whole lot more church attendance lessons than I have Matthew chapter 25 lessons. And it's important that we appear in a positive way. That we dress like a Christian, we walk like a Christian, we talk like a Christian. I've heard a lot of lessons on that. There are things that have been stressed over the years, but in Matthew 25, Jesus tells us something that we need to pay great attention to. He talks about that great day that none of us are going to get out of. That day that is appointed for us to stand in judgment before God. Jesus could have included anything he wanted to here. He writes the rules, he helps make them. The most important thing. This is the thing that's going to be mentioned. This is the thing that I'm going to talk to you about. This is the thing that you can kind of live your life by, and it's something that you're going to be judged on when you stand before God on that last day. Now, think back on those lessons. What is it that's coming to mind of the matters of importance you've been taught over and over and over again? You have that list, I have that list, but let's begin reading in verse 31. But when the Son of Man comes in all his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Verse 41 says, Then the king will turn to those on the left and say, Away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, and you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't invite me into your home. I was naked, and you didn't give me clothing. I was sick and in prison, and you didn't visit me. Then they will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and not help you? And he will answer, I tell you the truth. When you refuse to help the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were refusing to help me. And they will go away into eternal punishment. But the righteous will go into eternal life. And what is the reason that he gives for those who will receive eternal punishment? Because they did not do what Jesus did. They refused to help the least of these. And when we refuse to do what Jesus did, we are turning him away. The most important thing that we can do as we live here on this earth is allow Christ to be seen by this world. Now, folks, this is a matter of eternal importance for us and for others. Now, I want to ask you this question. What is the most important thing that you can wear? The scripture tells us this in Galatians chapter 3, verse 27. It says, for all of you who are baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. Jesus Christ is the most important thing that we can wear. He's the most important thing that we can ever put on. I want to ask you, brothers and sisters, how do you look in what you're wearing? Do others really see who you are wearing by the way that you're wearing it? And do you make Jesus look like something others want to wear? So why should we see him in others? The way I see it is a pretty simple answer. We should see him in others because he looks at us and he sees himself. He looks at Joey Haynes and sees himself. See, if he can look past the judgmental attitudes, if he can look past the self-righteousness, if he can look past the lack of mercy and grace, if he can look past all of those things that I'm guilty of and you're guilty of, and he can see himself, then surely we can look into the eyes of those that we are around every day and see him in them. I don't know where you are in your walk this morning. There may be some things you need to surrender. You may need to surrender your life over to Jesus for the first time. We'd love to be able to help you with that. But the beautiful thing about us coming together every week is we have prayer partners in the back, and we have an invitation that we offer. And it's a time where we just say, hey, if you have a need, let me know. And maybe you aren't where you want to be in your walk. Maybe you don't have the attitude toward others that you want to maintain. Maybe you're not as full of grace and mercy. Maybe you need God to open your eyes. I don't know what it is for you. I know the things I struggle with. And we're all in this together. If we can pray with you, we can help in any way whatsoever. Would you come, Mr. Stance?